They called her useless at 75. Her toys brought orphans to tears. Welcome back and enjoy the story. No one remembered her name anymore. At 75, Sally wandered through the supermarket aisles in silence. Employees ignored her. Young people pushed past her as if she were invisible, just another elderly woman taking up space in their busy world. Even her own nephew once said at a family gathering, "She's sweet, but let's be honest, she's not much use anymore." The words echoed in Sally's mind long after everyone had gone home. She washed the dishes slowly, one by one, whispering to herself, "Not much use, not much use." The phrase had become a painful mantra, a weight she carried through her quiet days in Chicago's bustling Lincoln Park neighborhood. She lived in a modest apartment filled with echoes, photos of people who never visited, shelves of books no one asked about, and boxes of forgotten fabric, buttons and broken dolls she had never had the heart to throw away. Through the thin walls, she could hear the laughter of young families and the excited chatter of college students. Their lives seemed so full of purpose, while hers felt increasingly empty. Years ago, she had been a seamstress, not just any seamstress, but the kind people lined up to see. She mended clothes, crafted costumes, even made wedding dresses with her own hands that brides treasured for generations. But with time, technology replaced thread. Fast fashion made her skills obsolete. Her hands grew shaky, her eyesight blurred, and slowly the world stopped needing what Sally had to offer. If you are enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type 0. It helps me create even better content for you. Continuing. One crisp autumn morning, while walking past a dumpster behind Jefferson Elementary School, she saw something that stopped her in her tracks. A torn teddy bear lying in the trash. Its eye was missing, its fur matted with dirt, one arm dangling by a few threads. Sally paused, leaning heavily on her walking cane. The bear seemed to look back at her with its single plastic eye, as abandoned and forgotten as she felt. With a grunt of effort, she bent down and picked it up gently, brushing dirt off its once white belly. "You were loved once," she whispered, her voice catching in her throat. The bear's stuffing peeked through multiple tears, yet there was something dignified about it still, something worth saving. Sally tucked the bear into her shopping bag and continued her slow walk home, her steps lighter than they had been in months. That night, under the warm glow of her reading lamp, she cleaned the bear with gentle hands. She found her old sewing kit, blew dust from its lid and carefully threaded a needle. Her fingers trembled slightly, but muscle memory took over. She stitched the bear's arm, patched its torn belly, and gave it a new blue button eye that almost matched the remaining original one. For the first time in years, her hands moved with purpose. She hummed as she worked, an old tune her mother had taught her. When she finally held up the restored bear, examining it in the light, something stirred within her, a feeling of accomplishment she had nearly forgotten. The bear wasn't perfect. Its patchwork showed. The new eye didn't quite match, but it was whole again, useful again. Would any child want such an imperfect toy? Sally wasn't sure, but as she placed the bear on her nightstand, she felt a strange sense of anticipation for the morning to come. What else could these old hands of hers bring back to life? What if all those broken things she'd collected over? The years weren't just junk after all, but who would want them in this city of shiny new things? Who would see the value in what was broken and mended? Will Sally's restored treasures find their way to children who need them? Or will her newfound purpose remain just a private comfort in her lonely days? The next day dawned with unusual clarity. Sally woke earlier than she had in years, her mind buzzing with possibilities. She pulled out an old cardboard box from her closet and began sorting through her collection of forgotten treasures. Broken trucks with missing wheels, headless dolls, puzzles with missing corners, a wooden train set with chipped paint. items she had rescued from sidewalks and thrift stores over the years, unable to bear the thought of them being discarded. Now she saw them with new eyes. She patched them, painted them, reattached limbs and wheels, her fingers growing steadier. With each repair, Mrs. Donahue, her neighbour from across the hall, knocked on her door that evening, concerned when she hadn't seen Sally at their usual afternoon tea. When she entered and saw the array of toys spread across Sally's living room floor, her eyebrows rose in surprise. "At your age, why bother with all this junk?" she asked, picking up a doll whose hair Sally had just finished combing into neat braids. Sally just smiled, gently taking the doll back. "Because someone still needs these, Mildred. No one wants old junk, Sally. You should rest. Focus on your health." But Sally couldn't rest. Something inside her had woken up. Something long buried under years of invisibility and dismissal. That night, she worked until her eyes grew heavy, the pile of restored toys growing beside her chair. For the first time in years, she fell asleep with a sense of purpose, dreaming not of the past, but of what tomorrow might bring. As dawn broke over Chicago's skyline, casting golden light, through her small window, Sally made a decision. She carefully packed her restored toys in a clean box, tied it with a ribbon she had saved from a long-ago birthday gift, and set out toward the north side of the city. Her destination, Lakeview Children's Home, an orphanage near the edge of town that she had passed many times but never entered. Her arms were full, and her heart pounded with each step. Would they even let her in? Would they accept these restored cast-offs? Or would they, like her nephew, see only an old woman with nothing of value to offer? A week later, Sally stood at the gates of Lakeview Children's Home, her arms full of restored toys, clean, soft, vibrant with new colors and carefully mended seams. Each step up the concrete path felt monumental. The building itself was imposing, a 3-story brick structure with narrow windows that reflected the morning sun. She was nervous, her breath coming in short bursts as she rang the bell. A young woman in a crisp uniform answered, her expression professionally neutral as she assessed the elderly visitor on the doorstep. "Can I help you?" she asked, eyeing the box in Sally's arms. I brought these for the children," Sally said, her voice stronger than she expected. "I restored them myself." The director was called, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Thornton, whose practiced smile didn't reach her eyes. She looked at Sally with suspicion, then peered into the box. "These are handmade?" she asked, lifting the teddy bear with the mismatched eyes. "Yes," Sally nodded. "I fixed them myself. They were broken, but now they're not." Mrs. Thornton pursed her lips. "We don't usually take used items. The children, they've had enough of things that are second-hand. They need to feel special, worthy of new things." Sally's smile faded, but she nodded and turned to leave, the weight of the box suddenly much heavier in her arms. She understood. Who would want mended things when shiny new ones existed? Who would want something loved by another when they could have something fresh and untouched? She had almost reached the gate when a small voice came from the hallway. "Wait." A girl, no older than 5, with tangled brown hair and a faded dress, peeked out from behind Mrs. Thornton. She pointed to the teddy bear that the director still held. "Is that for me?" Sally hesitated, looking to Mrs. Thornton for permission. Then she kneeled down, trembling slightly with the effort, and held out the bear. "He's yours now if you want him. I gave him a new blue eye, see? Now he can see properly again." The girl approached cautiously, then reached out and took the bear, clutching it like a long-lost treasure. She buried her face in its soft fur and began to cry, not loud, dramatic tears, but silent ones that spoke of deeper wounds than any child should bear. Real, silent, aching tears that made Mrs. Thornton's professional facade crack. "Please," she said softly, "please bring the rest inside. That afternoon changed everything. Dozens of children gathered in the common room, each receiving a toy. Not plastic, not from a factory, but made with care, with story, with hands that remembered love. Some held their toys close. Some danced around the room, showing off their new treasures. Some just stared, stunned by the simple act of receiving something that had been remade just for them. One boy, about 8 years old, with serious eyes, whispered as he accepted a wooden train, "No one ever made anything just for me before." His words hung in the air, a testament to what these children had been missing. Not just toys, but evidence that someone cared enough to create something special for them. Have you ever felt the powerful impact of a handmade gift? Has someone's creative effort ever touched your heart in a way a store-bought item never could? Share your experience in the comments below. From that day on, Sally visited every week. She brought new toys each time, but she also brought something more valuable: her time. She sat on the floor with the younger children, ignoring her, aching joints, and taught them how to sew simple stitches. She told stories to wide-eyed listeners about the days when everything broken was fixed instead of thrown away. She listened to their dreams, their fears, their small daily triumphs. The children began to wait for her visits, running to the windows when they spotted her walking up the path. "Miss Sally's here," they would call, their voices filled with excitement, and Sally, for the first time in years, heard her name spoken with joy. Mrs. Thornton noticed the change in the children. They were more careful with their belongings. They began to see value in things others might discard. They learned patience as they watched Sally work, her gnarled fingers moving steadily, transforming the broken into the beautiful. "You're teaching them more than how to sew," Mrs. Thornton told her one afternoon. "You're teaching them how to see potential, how to believe in second chances." Sally hadn't thought of it that way, but the director's words warmed her. Perhaps she was useful after all. As word spread about the elderly woman bringing joy to orphaned children, something unexpected happened. A local reporter looking for a human interest story visited Lakeview Children's Home and witnessed Sally's weekly session. The next day, the Chicago Tribune ran a headline: "Grandma Sally's Toys Heal Hearts at City Orphanage." The story told of an elderly seamstress using her forgotten skills to bring joy to children who had known too little of it. It spoke of toys, rescued from obscurity and given new life, much like the spirits of the children who received them. The article might have been just a one-day wonder, quickly forgotten in the bustle of city news. But something about Sally's story struck a chord. Will the city embrace Sally's mission? How far will her simple act of kindness reach, and what unexpected doors might open for both her and the children who have come to love her? Soon, donations poured in, not just of money, but of broken toys from all over Chicago, accompanied by notes and letters asking, "Can she bring this back to life too?" Sally's small apartment could barely contain the influx. Her living room transformed into a tiny workshop with bins of stuffed animals waiting for new eyes, dolls needing hair, and limbs, wooden toys ready for fresh paint. The building manager, who had barely acknowledged her existence before, cleared out a storage room in the basement for her growing operation. Neighbors who had never spoken to her now stopped by with offers of help. A group of art students from the nearby college volunteered their time, eager to learn her techniques. A former customer from her seamstress days, now running a textile company, sent boxes of high-quality fabric scraps. A retired carpenter offered to help with the wooden toys. The lonely woman who had been invisible for so long suddenly found herself at the center of a community. One Saturday morning, a young man in a business suit knocked on her door. Sally recognized him as Thomas Chen, a successful tech entrepreneur often featured in local business news. "My grandmother was a seamstress," he said without preamble. "She taught me the value of making things by hand. I'd like to help you reach more children." Thomas offered to create a website for Sally's project, complete with photos of the restored toys and stories of the children who received them. He set up a system where people could donate broken toys or supplies, and others could volunteer their time. He called the initiative Mended Hearts, with the tagline, "Nothing broken is beyond repair." The name brought tears to Sally's eyes. It captured perfectly what she had discovered in her own heart, as well as in her toys. The website launched, and Sally's small movement grew beyond what she could have imagined. Senior centers across the city started their own restoration workshops, with Sally providing virtual tutorials. Corporate offices held toy drives. Schools incorporated lessons about sustainability and the value of repairing rather than replacing. Lakeview Children's Home became just the first of many orphanages and shelters to benefit from the program. Letters arrived daily, many from parents who had shown their children the website. "My daughter gave up her new doll and asked if we could get one of Miss Sally's specials instead," one mother wrote. "She says she wants a toy with a story." Another came from a man in his 40s. "My son has autism and struggles with change. The teddy bear you mended for him is the only toy he will accept when he's upset. Something about its imperfections makes him feel understood." Sally read each letter aloud to her volunteers, her voice sometimes breaking with emotion. These weren't just toys anymore. They were bridges connecting generations, healing wounds, teaching lessons about worth and care that extended far beyond childhood. On a golden autumn afternoon, exactly 1 year after Sally had found that first discarded teddy bear, a special celebration was held at Lakeview Children's Home. The courtyard was decorated with colorful streamers and hand-painted signs. Children performed songs and recited poems they had written. City officials attended, as did reporters from several news outlets. But the guest of honor was most moved by the surprise that awaited her in the courtyard. A small bronze statue of an elderly woman sitting with a child, both bent over a teddy bear. The plaque read simply, "Sally Thompson, she showed us that nothing and no one is beyond repair." Sally stared at the statue through tears, barely hearing the applause around her. The little girl who had received the first bear, now confidently serving as the event's young hostess, took her hand. "Do you like it, Miss Sally?" she asked. "It's beautiful," Sally whispered. "But I didn't do anything special. I just fixed some toys." The girl shook her head wisely. "You fixed us too. What would become of Sally's legacy? Would her simple act of restoration continue to spread, touching lives far beyond her reach? And what further healing might come to both her and the children, who had found in each other a kind of family neither had expected? The transformation in Sally's life was profound. Her apartment, once a quiet museum of memories, now bustled with activity and purpose. Volunteers came and went, some staying for months, others dropping in whenever they could. A former student offered to help her set up social media accounts to share before and after photos of the restored toys. Children sent her thank you letters, with drawings of her surrounded by hearts. One even wrote in careful, childish script, "You are the grandma I always wished for." Sally kept that letter taped above her workbench, a reminder of how much meaning could be found in what others might consider useless work. Thomas Chen, true to his word, expanded the website to include tutorials and stories. He featured Sally in a TED Talk that went viral, spreading her message of renewal and second chances far beyond Chicago. Corporations reached out with sponsorship offers, but Sally remained firm. "This isn't about money," she insisted. "It's about showing value in what others have discarded." Instead, she accepted donations of materials and space. A vacant storefront in Lincoln Park was offered rent-free. For a year, as a workshop and distribution center, Sally named it the Mending Shop, and its windows soon displayed not only toys, but also the smiling faces of children and elderly volunteers working side by side. The most unexpected change came in Sally's relationship with her own family. Her nephew Jason, who had once dismissed her as useless, watched her television interview with growing shame. He arrived at her door one Sunday afternoon, his own children in tow, bearing an old rocking horse that had belonged to his father. "I thought maybe you could show the kids how to restore it," he said awkwardly. "They should learn what you have to teach." Sally welcomed them in without a word about past hurts. That afternoon became the first of many family Sundays at the mending shop, rebuilding connections that had frayed almost beyond recognition. Will Sally's newfound purpose continue? To transform not only her community, but also heal the fractured relationships in her own family? What legacy will this once-forgotten woman leave for future generations? Sally's 76th birthday arrived with little fanfare from her perspective. She had work to do, toys to mend, children waiting for her weekly visit. But when she arrived at the mending shop that morning, she found it transformed. Balloons and streamers hung from the ceiling. Children from Lakeview Home sang happy birthday as she entered. A cake in the shape of a teddy bear sat on a table surrounded by small handmade gifts. The mayor presented her with a key to the city for exemplary service in championing the potential in people and things others might overlook. News cameras captured the moment when all the children crowded around to hug her at once, nearly toppling the small woman with their enthusiastic affection. Later that evening, after the celebration, Sally sat alone in her workshop, surrounded by the tools of her renewal: needles and thread, glue and paint, brushes and buttons. She held the mismatched teddy bear that had started everything, kept as a reminder. "Not much use," she whispered, echoing the words that had once wounded her so deeply. But now they held no power. At 76, Sally Thompson had become the center of a movement that spread far beyond toys. She had reminded a disposable society that broken things and broken people still held value, that the time spent mending was never wasted, that the most beautiful creations often bore the marks of having once been broken. A knock at the door interrupted her reflection. It was the little girl who had received the first bear, now a regular visitor. She held a clumsily wrapped package in her small hands. "I made this for you," she said, offering the gift. Inside was a small, hand-sewn heart made from scraps of fabric. The stitches were uneven, the stuffing lumpy, but to Sally, it was perfect. "My first project," the girl said proudly. "I wanted you to have it." Sally held the little heart against her own. "Do you know what makes this so special?" she asked. The girl shook her head. "It's not perfect. It shows your work. It shows that you cared enough to try, to learn, to make something with your own hands. That's what makes it beautiful." The girl smiled. "That's what you taught us, that the fixing is the important part." As Sally tucked the child's gift into her pocket, she knew that this connection, this passing of knowledge, this recognition of worth, was her real work. The toys were just the beginning. At 75, they had called her useless. At 76, she had become indispensable, not for her skills alone, but for her vision of a world where nothing and no one was ever truly beyond repair. From that day on, the mending shop became more than just a place to fix toys. It became a center for intergenerational learning, where elderly craftspeople taught children skills that were in danger of being lost. It became a sanctuary where troubled teens could find purpose in creation and restoration. It became a community hub where people from all walks of life discovered the healing power of working with their hands and helping others. Newspaper articles and television features spoke of the mending movement, spreading to other cities, other countries. But Sally never sought the spotlight. She remained focused on the children, on the toys, on the simple joy of making something whole again. One day, As she sat teaching a group of children how to sew buttons, a reporter asked her the secret to her success. Sally looked around at the busy workshop, at the shelves of restored toys waiting to bring joy, at the faces of volunteers, young and old, bent over their work. "There is no secret," she said simply. "Just this. As long as your hands can move and your heart can feel, you have something to give. And giving is what makes us useful. Congratulations. Type 9 in the comments so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel,